So the next part I want to get set up into is to link up GitHub. GitHub is a source control website that many vendors like to use. And Epic is not an exception. So if we go to GitHub, we're going to need an account here as well. So let me go ahead and create one real quick. Okay, just verified my email there. Let's look for Unreal Engine here. I did not mean to go to topics. There we go. Now we're in Epic Games. So github.com/Epic Games. If you notice, Unreal Engine is not listed here. So we actually have to pair up our accounts. You'll see this little sign up tab here. Helps to follow instructions. Did that, did that. Just following the instructions here. Okay, that's linked. So now if we go back, refresh this page. So in my email, that's what I missed. I had an email to join Epic Games. So let's join. Yes. And now you see this private repo Unreal Engine. Now, get a little bit familiarized with GitHub here. When you're first greeted here, you're under releases. This is the current release, but be sure you have the one that matches what everyone else is using. You go under these releases to the right here. And we can download the source zip. I'm on a Windows machine, so I'm using the zip. While we're waiting on that, you can also see you have options for the new 4.26. And these are built whenever they work on it. In this case, they last made an adjustment 11 hours ago. So that's how fresh that is. But if you want one that matches your launcher, where it says like Preview 7, how you can find that is also under releases here. Show newer tags. And up here you can see the zip for 4.27.0 Preview 7. And that's how you would download that. As for the reasons of making it match, it really doesn't matter. You can go back and forth. The time that you'd run into issues is like if you upgrade your project from 4.24 to 4.25 anything, .4, and if you try to roll back, that's not going to work. Sometimes it does, but you'd be very lucky. So something else we will need for building from source, if we come down to the instructions here, it mentions you're going to need Visual Studio 2017. You can actually skip 2017, go straight to 2019. So we can click on this link, and you'll have to create an account with Microsoft. We can download our Visual Studio installer. At this point I haven't signed in yet. It'll make us sign in when we actually go into this downloader. So we'll come back to that in a moment. I'm done with that tab. Still waiting for this to finish downloading. It's at 177 meg. These are typically about 367 megs. So we're a little halfway. And what we're downloading is just the pure source code. There are still assets involved with it that the source code setup will download those and it'll grow even bigger. And as we compile it, it'll grow even bigger. I don't actually need to wait for this. I have it downloaded somewhere else. Welcome back. I took that moment to uninstall my Visual Studio 2019 so we could go through the install. I also took a break and deleted those temporary accounts I made. So I got the installer running that we downloaded. So we're going to need a few things in here. I'm going to want desktop. We're going to need some individual components. Start with Unreal Engine, right there. Okay, we already got the NuGet selected. I want that retargeting personal preference. No, I'm scrolling through quick. I personally want the newer SDK. That should be everything we need. If we miss anything, or if later on, for example, you want this Android IDE support, we can easily come back and add those as necessary. So let's go ahead and get those going. I do want this on my C drive. So let's go ahead and install that. As you see, I have not uninstalled my 2017. You can have both installed. So we'll take a little break here and let this install, download. So our computer just finished restarting. Go to Visual Studio Installer. We can double check that I clicked all the things required. So this basically showing if you needed to add a module after you've already set this up. We can just go to Modify and double check. It said we needed game development with C++. Okay, Okay, I don't know why earlier I didn't scroll down far enough. But here's that game development with C++ that I missed. Under individual, we had done Unreal Engine installer and the NuGet package manager. So we have all the requirements now. So we have that all set up now. So I went ahead and copied the Unreal Engine 4.25.4 zip file from the GitHub right to my C drive, and I'm going to extract it right here. While waiting for that, I am continuing with these instructions, and the next step will be to run setup.bat. So now it's finished extracting. It created an extra level hierarchy here, which I do not like. So I'm going to actually move all that straight down out of personal preference. Get rid of this folder. And now we're going to run that setup.bat. While we're waiting for that to finish downloading all the dependencies, you'll see there's a couple other setups here. So that would be like if you're in the Linux environment, same download. If you're in the Mac environment, same download, just which file you run would change. Looks like there's about 11 gigs of assets it has to download. These assets could be source code from other projects that it depends on. It could be just textures and images that Unreal Engine uses, packages for like your first player setup, your third person setup, the different type of game modules they have. They have some pre-made packages that will be downloaded and thrown into the templates. So all this right here should be downloading right now as part of that. So yes, unfortunately the initial setup does take a long time. And if you have a slower internet connection, mine's 100 meg and it still takes a long time. So some of this can take a couple days to set up if you're on a slower system. When I started off, I only had a little quad core with hyper-threading, so 8 threads, 12 gigs of RAM, little original i7 920, so first gen i7, DDR2 memory. I did upgrade the video card to a 1070, and that was my first system I used for learning Unreal Engine. And yes, it took a long time to download. Later on, I bought off of eBay a Z800 workstation from HP. And I upgraded it with dual Xeon, so it had a total of 12 threads with hyper-threading, so 24 processes, or 24 threads, sorry, and 48 gigs of RAM. And that was pretty nice. I'd moved that 1070 in there. 1070 does really good for learning Unreal Engine, and they're pretty cheap on eBay right now. But with how much I've been expanding and getting involved, I built this computer. This computer is a little beefier, but it was built for Unreal Engine in mind. So it's a 3950X with 48 gigs of RAM. No, 64 gigs of RAM. And we will see this getting taxed. as we compile. The less threads you have, the longer it will take to compile. Some computers that I've used, I've just let it run overnight and let it finish compiling because it took hours to compile. So take a little break here and let it finish downloading. 40% right now. Well, we're close to finishing up here. Well, it's in the last little moments. I can get rid of this file. I don't need this anymore. And in our instructions, the next step is to generate the project files. So depending on which environment you use, you're going to need a project file no matter what, whether it's Microsoft Code, VCode, Visual Studio. They all require a project file to be generated. This is just the like .NET 4.0 and Visual C++ libraries being installed. That pops up automatically when you finish the setup. So we're going to generate our Visual Studio files here. And now we have a Visual Studio project file. It's known with the SLN extension. I'm going to right click that. I'm going to open it with 2019. This is where you would have to sign in. We're going to have to select the UE4, right click, and we're going to have to set that as startup project right here. Down here you can see background tasks are still running. So still discovering everything involved. So let's go ahead and let that finish parsing. In the background, what's happening is it's creating this .vs folder. It's creating this database. As you see, it's growing right now. And this will help prevent having to do this every time you start Visual Studio. But say if you wanted to share a project, you don't need all this extra space, 400, well, altogether it's 460 megs. So we'll get into version controls a little bit, but this is example one things we can cut out and it can regenerate later if we had to distribute our project. So there it keeps finding more and more dependencies. It's just finding all the dependencies, and now it's finished. So now we're actually ready to right click and build our solution here. So on this machine, this will take about 40 minutes if I remember right. So this will be a time to take a break again. Well, we see just finished compiling here. you'll notice that there's 19 skipped. The things skipped are these Datasmith items. And I believe they were skipped because I actually don't have any of these programs installed, and it probably noticed that. So it skipped all of these. And that skip stuff will not affect us at all to worry about. Another peculiar thing that I want to cover. The recommendation is to use F5 and debug to run Unreal Engine from source code. I don't like doing it that way. We are actually done with Visual Studio for now. And this is how I usually run it. So it created the binaries here. So this is the editor. I'm going to actually right click and drag that to my root folder and create a shortcut. So now every time I want to run it, I can just run this and skip opening up Visual Studio, skip the debugging, and just go straight to my editor. You may notice it's paused right there at 39%. That's because in the background it's building all the shaders. So Visual Studio compiled the binaries, the actual source code, into the program files. But there are shader languages that has definitions on how to take basic images, textures, and make them into something more lively, something with reflections, transparencies, some 3D-ness to it. And so right now it's actually compiling the basic shaders, and that's why my computer is so busy right now, and it appears to be hung on 39%. So this will take a few minutes. It doesn't take too long on my computer, but it'll take a few minutes for it to compile. Once these are compiled, it won't have to compile them again, and it'll load much quicker. This is just the initial startup. And it's finished compiling the basic shaders. Here it's progressed enough that you can see it finishing up the last couple thousand. And this is our project window here. Whether we start this way or through the Epic Games launcher, it will appear the same at this point. So this wraps up the building from source code portion. There's another step that we should still do, and I'll give you a quick preview. Soucetree was shown to me from another YouTube or tutorial video, and this will get into a little bit of revision controls. And we should learn to start doing this early in our projects. So the next part will be setting up Soucetree, which is a very simple beginner revision control tool. So see you in the next video. Have a good day.